Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're talking about a sultan who didn't just rule an empire, he completely transformed it, redrew the map of the world, and created a legacy that would echo for centuries. We're talking about Mehmed II.
So, let's get right into it. How does a young ruler who fails so spectacularly that he gets picked off the throne become one of the most powerful and effective emperors in history? This isn't a simple story of rising to the top. It's a story that starts with total humiliation and is fueled by a relentless, almost obsessive ambition. This is the story of how a man became the conqueror. To really understand the man he became, you have to start with the boy he was. His journey to greatness doesn't begin with a crown of glory, but with a crown of shame. It's a failure that would become the fire that drove him for the rest of his life. Okay, so picture this. You're 12 years old, and your dad, the Sultan, decides he's had enough and retires, handing you the keys to one of the most powerful empires on earth. That was Mehmed in 1444, and, well, it was a complete and utter disaster. Right away, he's facing a massive Crusader invasion. His own court is a snake pit of rivalries. And then, the Janissaries, the elite soldiers of the empire, they riot in the capital. After just 2 years, the powerful Grand Vizier, a guy named Chandarli Halil Pasha, basically forces him out. At 14 years old, he's deposed, disgraced, and sent away.
You've got to understand, this wasn't just losing a political battle. This was a deep, searing, personal humiliation, and it forged this iron will in him. In his mind, he now had a clear list of enemies: the old, powerful nobles who saw him as a child, the rebellious troops who defied him, and the Christian kingdoms trying to destroy him. That failure lit a fire in him, a burning need to come back and win a victory so huge, so undeniable, that no one could ever question his power again.
So when his father dies in 1451, Mehmed gets his second chance. But now he's 19. He's not a boy anymore. He's colder, he's smarter, he's far more calculating, and he comes to the throne with one single, all-consuming obsession: taking Constantinople. And he didn't just rush in. His approach was like a master chess game. First, he makes peace with his enemies in Europe, signing treaties so he won't get attacked from behind. Smart. Then, and this is brilliant, he builds a giant fortress on the Bosphorus in just 5 months. Its name, Boğaz Kesen, which literally means the throat cutter. Its job was to choke off any ships trying to help the city. He was isolating his target piece by piece before a single shot was fired.
But the biggest battle he faced wasn't outside the city walls. It was inside his own war room. You had 2 camps. On one side, there's Chandarli Halil Pasha. Yep, the same guy from his first reign, representing the old guard. He's saying, "This is insane. It'll unite all of Europe against us." Then on the other side, you have guys like Zağanos Paşa, part of a new generation totally loyal to Mehmed. They're pushing hard, arguing that taking the city is the only way to secure the empire. And, more importantly, Mehmed's absolute power.
In the end, Mehmed just shuts down the whole debate. He overrules the cautious old guard and lays it out in no uncertain terms. He basically says, "This is happening, and opposing it means you are opposing me." This wasn't just about strategy anymore. He made the siege a personal test of loyalty to him.
And so, on April 6th, 1453, the main event begins. This was a truly epic showdown. You have Mehmed's huge army and his revolutionary new cannons squaring off against the legendary walls of Constantinople, fortifications that had protected the city for over 1,000 years.
54 days. For 54 grueling, relentless days, the city somehow held on. It's an unbelievable testament to those defenses. The cannons pounded the walls day and night, but the defenders fought back every single assault. The fate of an empire and really the world was hanging in the balance.
But inside the walls, there was a fatal flaw. The Orthodox Christian defenders deeply resented the Western Latin Catholics from places like Venice. The mistrust was so bad that many felt that Ottoman rule would be better than having to submit to the Pope. And that division, that internal weakness, proved to be just as destructive as any cannon.
Then it happened. A final, massive, all-out assault before dawn. This time, Mehmed's elite Janissaries punched through the walls.
And just like that, the Byzantine Roman Empire, an empire that had lasted 1,000 years, came to a sudden, violent end. Mehmed, now just 21 years old, rides into the city he just conquered. He's not just a sultan anymore. He's a Caesar.
But here's the thing you have to understand about Mehmed. Taking Constantinople was never the final goal. It was the beginning. It was the cornerstone for his real project, building a totally centralized, absolute world empire, with him at the very center of it all.
And the guy's ambition was just relentless. For the next 30 years, he's almost constantly at war. He marches into the Balkans, absorbing Serbia and Bosnia. He conquers the entire coast of the Black Sea, effectively turning it into a private Ottoman lake. He even starts a 16-year war with Venice and manages to capture a city in Italy. He was pushing the boundaries in every direction.
While he was expanding outwards, he was launching a revolution at home. One of his first moves? He has Chanderli Halil Pasha executed. The old score was settled, and it sent a very clear message to everyone else. He systematically tore down the power of the old Turkish nobles, replacing them with officials who were loyal only to him. He seized thousands of plots of land to create a state-funded treasury for his new army. And he tamed the Janissaries, turning them into his own personal instrument of power. He was rebuilding the state from the ground up.
And then he wrote down the rules for his new state in a law code called the Kanunname. It laid out the whole structure of his centralized government. And it included one of the most ruthless and famous laws in history. It made it legal for a new sultan to execute his own brothers. Why? To prevent the bloody civil wars over succession that had nearly torn the empire apart in the past. For Mehmed, the order of the world was the ultimate law.
So when you put it all together, who was this person who so completely remade his world? Was he just a ruthless warlord? The truth is so much more complex. When you look at the sources, you find a man of incredible, deep contradictions.
I mean, just listen to this. He's a devout Muslim who built incredible universities for Islamic learning, but he also loved to debate Christian theology. He was a Turkish warrior who modeled himself on Alexander the Great and the Roman Caesars, and he hired Italian scholars to read their histories to him. He had his portrait painted by a famous Venetian artist, an act that was almost unheard of in the Islamic world. He was a poet, fluent in multiple languages, a student of philosophy. He was, at the same exact time, a medieval warlord and a true Renaissance man.
He died in 1481, on the march to yet another campaign, of course. He left behind a completely transformed empire and a legacy that's just impossible to simplify. So was he a ruthless tyrant or an enlightened emperor? You know, maybe the real lesson from Mehmed the Conqueror is that the people who really truly shape history are rarely just one thing. They're almost always both.